Hey guys, in this video I'm about to show you, we're going to talk about shading in your tooling. The tool I'm going to be using is a vertical line thumbprint from Barry King. It's a number 2 is the size of it. But the video that I'm going to show you is actually part of a full online classroom that I do. It's a subscription-based online class. I'll tell you more about that at the end if you're interested in it. But it was part of this project that we're working on this month for this rifle sling. And in the class, we walk through all the steps, start to finish on this project. If you're interested in that, there's a link in the description. I'll tell you more about that at the end. But for right now, let's jump over to the marble and get started with this shading. For shading this project, I'm going to use my number 2 vertical line thumbprint here. And those vertical lines I really like, especially on some of this bigger stuff where we can run this down vine work. But rather than starting at one end and moving to the other, I'm going to go ahead and go a couple different elements at a time here just to show you how I shade those different elements in here. But let's start anywhere there's a turn back, a fold over, a fold under, things like that. There's a few of them in this project, so we'll just start here at the wide end and start this first big kind of leaf stump thing that folds over here. Let's get right down in here. When something's folded over, I want to get that shading right up to my line. Watching which direction those lines are facing. I want that facing to roll down that vine. I don't want to turn them sideways in here because that'll kind of take away from the flow when you get to looking at things for the overall picture. I'm keeping that tipped up to soften that back edge of it, but getting down in there and hitting pretty hard, getting it nice and deep right in there where I want that shadow from it folding over. Okay, we move down the pattern just past this flower. There's another one that folds over right here. You know, I'm kind of rotating that tool, keeping those lines moving down my stem or down that vine. When we get down here, this kind of swirl that comes around tucks right underneath itself. I work that shading around there. There's one more of those right at the bottom. We'll do that the same way. I'm kind of pointing those lines just back to where the center would be. And I'm really tipping that tool not to push down the edge, the outside edge of that. And in between those two, there's one more that was just folded over one time. Tucked right in here next to this edge, we got this one small one that folds over here. I'll make sure to shade that down as well. Okay, now moving back up our pattern, let's look for anything that we'll call it kind of a sticker vine, one of these that just branches off there. These will tip that shader where I'm softening that back edge and I'm watching for that little highlighted ridge right there on the edge. See where that tucks under the border, I take that shading right up to the border. right here, this one that folded under, it's essentially one of these sticker vines, but where it's rolling under there, I don't want to get super dark up here with my shading. So I'm going to come just over this inside line. I'm going to tip that and get a little bit of line of shading right there around that fold. This one here that comes around, we'll watch for this edge, this outside highlighted ridge here. Fade that off. And I'm also going to come around on the inside of this line. We'll get a little bit of shading around there as well. Coming off this border, we'll get just a touch of shadowing there. Help give that some dimension going underneath there. Now we get into a few of these that are a little bit different shape. This one here kind of curves up and then kicks back around. So I'm going to try to get some shading down here at the bottom. Out towards where that tip's underneath there. But then on this outside edge, I'm just going to really tip and barely get some light shading there, and that just brings a little extra shape to that piece right there. Now this bigger leaf or stump that's rolled out around here, I'm going to watch this outside edge up here, really tip that tool, but I just want to get that highlighted ridge with some shadowing. And as I tip, I'm going to barely tap in here. Just a little bit of shadowing and relief off of that border line. Now coming on the inside of it, these two ridges, I'm going to tip that tool right there, and then move up to this next little ridge. And I lighten this up as I bring it up towards that tip and connect those. Now some of this big open space here, I'm going to leave that open, and we'll come back with decorative cuts and kind of bring that to life towards the end. Move on down here to this flower. These petals, we're going to start out there on the tip, really tipping that tool, watching that outside edge. Soften that around the border. Pick that up. And then the same thing here on this bottom ridge, kind of like we did over here. Tipping that tool, filling out that ridge, and then lightening up as we bring it up here to connect. And again, that open space in there, we'll utilize that with our decorative cuts later on. When you're using a line thumbprint for your shading in these flowers, we talk about which direction those lines are facing. I'm always kind of pulling those back towards the center here, just like when we run our decorative cuts. And that's going to help create that flow in your eye when you look at it. Now when we get down here, we just got 3 more spots that we're going to be putting some shading in. We'll start with this bigger swirl in here. I'm going to very lightly kind of fade from that tip. I'm wanting to pick up just a little bit of shading right around this bottom edge. It's going to help kind of create a little bit of a ridge down here and just add a little dimension to it. Also going to come right out on that outside edge. Creating almost a little depth and ridge in the middle there. Now you've seen these swirls in the past that we've done where we leave them completely blank of shading and just come on the outside with that veiner, and that's an option too, but I just wanted to show another option on here where we get just a little bit different look to these. So we'll jump down to this bottom one and do the same thing that we just did on that one. Get that ridge around that bottom inside curve. And again, we'll work around to the outside. I'm rotating that tool as we move around there. Now this last one in the middle here, this one's a little bit different. It's not that full swirl around there, but I'm gonna get just a little bit deeper around this bottom edge, a little more aggressive with it. Roll that around, kind of lighten but fade up here to this top line, and then a little more aggressive here as well. And then lighten that and fade it back around. Creates a little bit more of that ridge in the middle there. I hope you've got some value out of this video and that it's helped you with your shading in your tooling. Just for a second, I want to tell you about that link in the description for the Leather Life Classroom. Now that's a link to the online subscription-based class where this video is from. So in that class, each month we do a new project. This month is that rifle sling, but the projects become available on the 1st of every month. It's a new project. You get the patterns to download, as well as videos that walk you through step by step, all the way from cutting your leather out, tooling, finish work, construction, putting it all together, all the way to that finished product. So if you guys like this step-by-step teaching and you want to get more of that, check out that link in the description and come check out the classroom and see if it's something you'd be interested in. I appreciate you taking time to watch this video, and hopefully this has helped you along your tooling journey. Take care, and we'll see you in the next one.